What's up, YouTube? We're finally looking at the last week of GBL for this season, and it is all three in rotation. We've got Great League, Ultra League, and Master League, but we're going to be taking a look specifically at the Great League as we usually do on this channel. So without further ado, let's take a look at the top 20 ranked Pokemon, and then we're going to look at 10 top teams. So we've got Clodsire, Jumpluff, Mandibuzz, Corsola, Corviknight, Lapras, Dusclops, Malamar, Shadow Dusk Noir, Shadow Feraligatr, Clodsire again but with a different moveset, Shadow Sableye, Feraligatr, Shadow Malamar, which is the only new one on this list, Shadow Galarian Weezing, Tinkaton, Grumpig, Diggersby, Dusknoir, and Togetic. Now all these are pretty similar and what they were basically last season, or not last season, last couple weeks, but Shadow Malamar is new, and a couple of these you don't see as often as the rankings might suggest, but without further ado, let's hop into 10 top teams. So the first team that I'm going to show off is a team that I have used consistently at LegendELO. This team is my go-to climbing ELO team for the season, and that's because it's just such a great core. You've got Jellicent on the lead, which is weak to Dark. And you have two answers to Dark in the back with Shadow Drapion and Tinkaton. Shadow Drapion is a great safe switch. It can always lure out ground types if your opponent has any, and then it has Aqua Tail to either punish and like flip switch or grab shields, and then that sets up Tinkaton to roam free in the back. Also, Tinkaton and Jellicent make a like near perfect core according to PvPoke. Because Tinkaton, it's weak to ground and it's weak to fire. Those are its only two weaknesses, and Jellicent with super effective Surf for both of those. So just a really strong team here, and one that I've used to a lot of success. The next team is one that I used to reach leaderboard ELO for the very first time, and that is Dewgong, Shadow Annihilape, and Shadow Marowak. There is a lot of fast move pressure on this team, which is what I think makes it so strong. And then you've also got some decent bulk. Like Dewgong is very bulky, and then Marowak and Annihilape have some surprising bulk. Marowak more so than the Annihilape. But overall, this team, when you look at it just in the PvPoke sims right here on the screen, it doesn't look great, right? And that's because the PvPoke sims the average of the 0 and the 1 shield scenario. And all three of these Pokemon perform best in the 2 shield scenario. So what you really want to do with this team is find out your opponent's weaknesses and then just run with one of these Pokemon for 2 shields, whichever that Pokemon that might be. And that's kind of how you play this team. Also, Annihilape and Marowak can function as safe swatch, which is really nice. The next team we're going to take a look at is a very popular one that's currently floating around in Legend, and that is Tinkaton, Furret, and Shadow Malamar. Now, Shadow Malamar, obviously a super strong addition to the Great League, and it pairs really well with Anti-Fairy Fairies. Previously, it was a great core with Galarian Weezing, but now Tinkaton has taken over, because Tinkaton is bulkier, it's got better typing, so overall, it's just a strong core there. And then Furret as your safe swap to lure out either your Darks or your Fairies, because that's basically what Malamar doesn't really want to see. It doesn't want to see things like Mandibuzz. It doesn't want to see things like other Tinkatons. So luring that out with Furret, punishing it with your own Tinkaton, and then letting Shadow Malamar sweep in the back. The next team is an extremely bulky meta team where Lapras is your safe swap, and the core between Jumpluff and Lapras and Jumpluff and Bastiodon are both really strong. Jumpluff being weak to Rock and being weak to Ice and Poison. You've got two answers for those in the back. Lapras with Sideways hits those poison for super effective damage. Bastiodon as a Steel and Rock resists the poison damage. It can hit those fire types, which Jumpluff is also weak to. Both of those can hit that for super effective in the back. And then Lapras weak to fighting. So as your safe swap, if you lure out a fighter, that's okay. You punish it with Jumpluff, and then Bastiodon roams free. So overall, this team is super strong. and Bastion weak to ground, and you have 2 other answers for ground as well. The next team we're going to take a look at is one that I ran pretty recently, and that includes a very glassy team in Morpeko, Ariados, and Talonflame. While this team is very glassy, it spams very quickly as well, and hits really, really hard. So where you lose in bulk, you make up for in damage and like sweeping capabilities. You have that with both Morpeko and Talonflame, and then Ariados as your safe swap to just debuff the attack on anything and just kind of help with the bulk of the overall team. This core is really strong just because Morpeko, it's weak to fighting, it's weak to fairy, and it's weak to ground, and it's weak to bug. So you've got 2 answers for all of those in the back, because Ariados as a poison resists the fighting, it resists the fairy, it resists the bug, and it hits grounds for super effective damage with Trailblaze, and it also neutralizes ground damage on itself as a bug. And then Talonflame, same deal as a fire flying. So all very strong team here, ABC style team. The next team we're going to take a look at is Jellicent, Credilli, and Steelix. Credilli is weak to ice, fighting, bug, and steel, all of which are resistant on Jellicent. So a great core there with your safe swap. And then Credilli, as a safe swap, can potentially lure out fighters, which Steelix doesn't want to see in the back. And Steelix also makes a really great core with Jellicent. Steelix is weak to ground, it is weak to fire, and honestly, Credilli and Jellicent do well into both of those. So very strong, kind of an ABB, more ABC style team here. The next team we're going to take a look at is Stunfisk, Gliscod, Talonflame. The Stunfisk Gliscod core is actually really, really strong, and Stunfisk on its own is kind of a core breaker because it does have a lot of like difficult weaknesses to cover, because it's weak to water, it's weak to ice, it's weak to ground, and it's weak to grass, which a lot of is the main meta, but Gliscod as a water bug, it resists ground, it resists water, it resists ice, and then it neutralizes grass because of the bug, and then you have super effective coverage for the bug. So very, very strong core there. And then you have Talonflame in the back, which is a great sweeper. It covers your ice and grass and ground weaknesses, but it does make you ABA weak to water. However, Stunfisk as an electric can stay in against those waters, so that's not really an issue. However, if it is a mud boy like Gastrodon, then you have Talonflame in the back, which resists the mud slap. So overall, a very solid team here. The next team we're going to take a look at is Sandslash, Claydol, and Azumarill. This one's pretty straightforward. Sandslash is weak to fire, and it's weak to fighting. So you have 2 answers for fire and fighting in the back, a water and a ground. Both hit fire for super effective damage, and a fairy and a psychic, they both resist fighting. And if it's like a fire flying on Claydol, you have super effective rock tomb as well. So this team is really, really strong. You also have some nice bulk in the back to make it easier on Sandslash. You can commit more shields to it. I will say, if you're going to run this team, I would actually argue that Shadow Claw would be better on Sandslash for this team specifically, just because in the back you're already pretty weak to water as is. So running Shadow Claw means that you can at least hit for neutral damage with Shadow Claw and Drill run against those waters. The second to last team that we're going to take a look at is Toxapex, Diggersby, Guzord. Both Diggersby and Guzord are weak to fighting and ice. So Diggersby would be the safe swap in this situation. It would lure out the ice or the fighter. In an ice's case, you have super effective fire punch for those. Guzord is also weak to fairy, which Toxapex covers as a poison. Diggersby is weak to water, it's weak to grass, which Toxapex covers as well. So really solid core between the two, and they're also really bulky, which means they don't really need shields as much, which allows you to use more of your shield on Guzord, which is good because it's a fast move damage Pokemon with Dragon Tail, and you can put a lot of pressure on that way. The final team that we're going to take a look at is Carbank, Serperior, and Corviknight. A lot of teams I've noticed are ABA weak to rock at higher elo, so Carbank as a bulky rock type can core break a lot of teams. Serperior and Corviknight also make decent cores with it, but they're both weak to fire. However, Carbank does resist fire and it hits for super effective damage. So kind of an ABB style team here, but it is more ABC as in there's no like shared typings. But yeah, that is 10 top teams for your final push in the Great League. I wish you all so much luck. You guys killed it on the last video for the top teams video. It was absolutely insanity. I think it's over 6,000 views, which is easily the highest on this channel. So I appreciate you guys so much for that. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.